Hey everybody, it's the Bad Pennies,
Bad Pennies.
back again. I am Sho, and this is my friend Alan. And we're going to continue talking about leadership today. And then we're going to take it from there, see what happens.
Oh, you never know where it's going to end up with us. So we left you with some sort of like, I wouldn't say it was a cliffhanger per se, but we did get into some interesting things. And we even ended the last podcast talking about a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit about being a leader in your marriage or in a relationship.
Right, yeah.
And what that actually looks like, which is different than what a lot of men seem to think that it looks like. So we're going to get back into that, but we also talked a little bit about writing things down and journaling and things like that. So I kind of want to pick that up a little bit because I want to show them a little bit about how I work it. And again, you don't have to do it this way. What's important here is that you see that how at least one man applies this work. So when we tell you that it's important to do certain things, it's not something that we're just saying and not doing ourselves. So
I don't have my journal with me, but I can describe the way that I journal.
Absolutely. But what I want to show you is something that I found that works with me on a whole bunch of levels. And I had tried a bunch of different things and kept wanting to get things smaller and smaller. So when I could carry things with me and be able to write things down in the moment.
Yeah.
And of course now, as I've gotten older, I have to write things down because I can't remember them. So there is that. But anyway, so I was at one of our favorite large office supply stores.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to give a plug to anybody in particular here, but I believe these are carried pretty much by everybody.
Probably.
So let me show you. So these are like the little school journals or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well these were like put in a dryer and shrunk.
Right.
So they're really small,
pocket
and
size.
they come in different colors. And there's even a red one, but I like the black ones kind of. But generally, when they have them on sale at the beginning of a school season, they're like 25 to 50 cents a piece.
Okay.
And I buy a whole bunch of them, and they'll last me a couple of years. So as you can see, these are unused. So I just pulled them out of the drawer just to show you that I've got, I'm ready for the next ones when I fill one up. So this one is doing double duty right now. It is not only my daily journal of things that I get accomplished, but it's also I'm working as a to-do list as well, and it says 2024. And I had actually started it in 2023 toward the end, and I ended up just tearing the pages out. So I don't want to show you everything, but as you can see, it gets filled up. Okay. And I check things off. So I often write down the day before all of the things that I need to do, and then the following day I'm able to look at it and check things off.
Okay.
And if I get everything done and I still got a bunch of time left, which often happens, I write some more stuff down.
Cool.
Or I look at what I have on the to-do list for the next week or the next month or things like that, and see how much of it I can actually get checked off. And I can't even begin to tell you how much more productive you'll become if you start doing stuff like this.
Okay.
Well, at least I know it changed my life in so many ways.
What I do with my journal is I may write down a quick thought. It can only be like 2 lines sometimes, and then other times it's a lesson that I may have learned that day, and I'll try to give myself the best explanation possible. I'm writing to my future self.
Excellent.
So that as I go back and read it, it's almost like I'm writing a letter to the guy I haven't met yet.
Right. Well, I have a larger journal too that I write in, and I do some more what we were talking about introspective work.
Okay.
I do a lot more of that. I don't really do that with these little ones. These little ones actually go in my pocket. They go with me everywhere. In fact, as you can see, this one is kind of like starting to show its wear. But that's okay because at the end of the year, I've documented everything I've done. Including everything I haven't done.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't have a check next to it, it didn't get done.
Right.
So, but I have a way of looking back at it. It's actually been even helpful a couple of times in preparing taxes and things like that. Where I was able to like just say, okay, well, this is where I went, and figure out mileage and cost and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, it can be, you can use it any way you want. Come up with your own system. This just happens to be the one that I use. And like I said, I have another journal that I write things in that looks like this, only larger. And I also use 4x6 cards. And I used to use 3x5, but now I'm old and my eyes. It's like I don't need glasses for driving.
Okay.
I used to for most of my life, but when I turned 60, my eyes got better, and I passed the eye test at the DMV. So I don't have to. So I'm not like nearsighted anymore.
Yeah.
But I can't read little print, so I actually have to wear like little reading glasses and stuff. Yeah. It's really embarrassing, but
I wear glasses for everything.
Well, I did too for a long time. Yeah. So anyway, but with the 3x5 cards, I found that it wasn't enough space, and B, I had to write too small and I couldn't read it. So now I've graduated to 4x6 cards, and of course, a lot of the men in my life they now tease me that I have to graduate to 5x7 cards, and eventually I'll be using the big ones. So
writing with a magic marker.
Oh yeah, start writing on a board. All right, so So that's that thing. Take it to heart. Write stuff down. It will make a difference. And even like those personal things, write those things down, and go take a look at them from time to time. Especially, like once a month, at least once a month, maybe twice a month. I actually do a little introspection every weekend.
Okay. Pretty
much every weekend. So at some point between Saturday and Sunday, I'll spend some time and take a look at stuff and reevaluate. And then do what we call course correcting. Because sometimes, just in any kind of navigation, just like life, you're navigating your way through life. So you're going to need to course correct from time to time. And if you don't spend the time to figure out how far off course you are, or if there's a change of course, that's the other thing. You may be on course, but it may not be in the direction that you've now decided that you want to be. So you'll be able to do that.
That's fair.
Course correct.
Yeah.
So we left you, and I promise we'll come back to the relationship thing at some point. But we left you with coming up with ideas on your own about what a great leader looks like. What does it look like to you?
Yeah.
What are the qualities that make a great leader, and especially by looking at leaders that you personally admire.
Yeah. And I talked about, visualizing some of the great leaders that I've known. And,
exactly.
Writing down the qualities.
Writing down the qualities. So, I do the homework too, by the way. So, it's one of the things that I learned a long time ago, is that if you're leading something and you haven't done the homework, when you assign it, there's something empty about it,
Yeah, there is.
And besides, you can get called out on it. It's very embarrassing to get called out on something, and everybody else did the homework, but the man that assigned it.
Right.
So
right.
I found that when I assign homework, it's actually a responsibility that I have, and to actually do it as well.
Okay.
Now sometimes I'll assign homework that I've already done, and that's fine too.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But sometimes I think that taking a new look at it is a good thing to do, and actually do the homework again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it turns out different.
Yeah.
In fact,
absolutely.
often it does.
A lot of times it will.
All right. So what I did was I made a list of what makes a great leader, and you might want to take out your lists if you've made them already, and if you haven't made them, just kind of visualize and go along with this about how these things show up in your own life or don't. Because one of the things that you will discover is that you may not have all the qualities yet.
Fair.
But that's okay, because it gives us something to do.
Right.
Something to work on, right?
Yeah, you got to make an assessment.
Got to make an assessment. So so I made a list, and I know it's a little boring sometimes on a podcast to just read stuff off.
We'll see.
but we're going to do it anyway. All right. So
It may not be.
and
We're giving good information.
So
here,
you at some point just turn the volume off or find another podcast. But hopefully we don't bore you too much. But I'm going to read some of the list. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit of it and then do some more of it. So that way we don't just dump all this stuff on you at once.
Yeah.
All right. So what makes a great leader? Organized.
Yes.
Okay. Organized. Holds high standards. Holds high standards. And the thing I want to say about standards again is that if you have one, the only way that you know that you have it is how it shows up. If you don't hold it all the time, then it's not a standard.
Okay.
Okay. It's not what you think you have that you do, or that you want to do, or that you find to be noble or important or whatever. It's what actually shows up in reality. You want to be doing. You want to be looking at the things you're doing in reality, and that will tell you what kind of standards you have. But when you talk about high standards, that means raising the bar all the time.
Right. So
your standards get higher and higher. So holding high standards is definitely a quality of a great leader. Being three-dimensional, and there are men out there that know what I'm talking about. What we're just saying is that you want to develop all of the aspects of your personality and your being as a man.
Okay.
All right. So that means just working with other men and finding out what aspects that you have that are weak. You may be very bold, very forceful, but not very caring. Well, forceful without caring is really an out of control place to be.
Okay.
So developing all of those little aspects of it and dimensions of a man's personality.
Yeah.
You want to always be raising the bar. We just said that. So great leaders raise the bar. High principles of high character.
Principles of high character.
Right. And we did a whole podcast, maybe even two.
Yeah, we did.
On character. So
actually, episode 1, episode 2.
Yeah. See, we're already setting you up to win here. He gives more than he expects.
He gives more than he expects.
Right. In other words, leaders that expect a lot but don't expect anything from themselves.
Okay.
It's like a one-way street. And it's hard to really respect a leader who's always telling everybody else what to do, but doesn't hold any kind of standard for himself.
How does that play into when we talked in the past podcast about not having expectations?
Well, okay. So that's actually a really good question. Yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to ask that, but since we're there,
I'm a student, man.
All right. So look, you're gonna use that word with a grain of salt, okay? Because when you give assignments, you do need them to be done. All right. When a leader delegates out to others,
yes,
he needs them to be done. So we use the word expect because it just sort of applies here.
Okay.
But you really don't get those things done without a little inspection and checking in on them from time to time.
So
but not necessarily holding their hand.
Yeah.
But in anything, you need the jobs to get done.
Yeah.
And there is some certain level of expectation there.
Okay. So,
but you don't want to misuse it. You definitely want to
expecting in a relationship, expecting what a person should do for you. That's something that
you don't want to do that.
When you're giving out an assignment, you expect to get the work done.
Yeah.
That's a context out of expectation that we actually want.
And I want to say that if you're not getting what you expect, the person to look at is in the mirror. All right, it's somehow in some way you're not getting or giving what that person needs to be able to fulfill what you need them to do.
Cool.
All right. So you don't start with them being wrong. You start with yourself and take a look at how am I failing this person that they're not actually living up to standards. They're not producing what we need them to produce. Right. Just
Okay.
like that example that I gave. I don't know whether it was last week or a couple of weeks ago. I gave the example of the worker that got fired because they were their work was subpar, but they didn't know it.
Okay. Right.
Well, how could they improve their work if they think what they're doing is okay?
Right. Right.
So you need to let them know. You need to make sure that someone knows that what you need from them or what you expect from them is more than what they're producing.
Okay.
And then you've got to figure out as a leader how to help them get it.
Okay.
That's part of the job of a leader, right?
Gotcha.
Is to help them be successful.
Yeah.
If they fail, it's because you failed.
Okay.
All right. With the model that we've been giving you. So unemotional.
Unemotional. A good quality of a leader is unemotional.
Yeah. Why do you think that's true?
Well, you don't want to be someone that reacts on emotion, but I don't think emotion would be something that you don't want to have.
Well, it's not that you don't have emotions. It's how you apply or don't apply them. Leaders that are emotional tend to be difficult to work with.
Okay.
They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down.
Yeah.
Right. And if you've done a good job for them, they're all happy. And if you're not getting what they think you should be doing, then they're unhappy. And it's like, people start to become afraid of going into the boss's office because they don't know how they're going to react. They're going to react negatively. That's being emotional.
Okay.
All right.
So
it's not saying that it's bad to have emotions.
Yeah.
It's that it's how you use them. And good leaders, great leaders, are really in control of them.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be someone who makes decisions on emotion.
No, you don't want to use your emotions to make decisions, and you don't really want to be emotional with with the people that you're in charge of, or even with your own bosses and or peers.
Can we just say rational?
Well, it is irrational to be emotional in situations like this.
Right, but a good leader is rational,
yes.
Yeah.
And rational does tend to describe an unemotional approach. Okay.
Fair.
All right. And look, it doesn't mean that you can't celebrate. It doesn't mean you can't, be excited when things go well. So all I'm saying is that how you are presenting yourself, it makes it easy for everyone to approach you.
Okay.
If you're difficult to approach, as a lot of leaders are, what they lose is they could be even more successful than they already are.
Understood.
If people can approach you, then you can get a lot more done.
Okay. Fair.
Trust, both in those that a leader's in charge of, as well as himself or herself. Trust in your leadership. So you have to develop yourself. Remember that most of the work of being a leader is leading yourself.
Right.
And if you do that well, one of the results of that is that you'll be able to trust yourself. You'll trust in your leadership.
Right.
And sometimes you get thrown stuff that you've got to make decisions quickly, and you got to trust in making those decisions.
Okay.
All right. Asking tough questions.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Good leaders ask tough questions.
Ask leading questions a lot of times too. You want to make sure that you don't just give the information.
Well, that's true. The thing is that if leading questions are a tool in a great tool in a master's hands.
Yeah.
But a weapon in someone who doesn't know what the heck they're doing.
Okay.
All right. So you don't always want to be asking leading questions, but they are useful. And again, we can maybe talk about that down the road a little bit about
Open
what
questions.
about what good questions are, what tough questions are versus what leading questions are, and why you would ask one in certain situations. So,
well, let's ask the viewers for comments about, what do you think would be some good questions that a leader should be asking?
Yeah, and again, think about leaders that you respect and admire, and what kind of questions do they ask?
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Great leaders are clear on their purpose and higher purpose.
Yeah, have to be, and be able to communicate that. I think is one also. You have to be clear on it yourself.
Yes.
You have to be able to communicate it.
Great leaders challenge you
challenge
to work at a higher level.
Yeah, and motivate at the same
And
time.
motivate. Yeah, great leaders will. You'll notice that if you're around a really great leader, you'll want to be better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You desire to be better.
There you go.
And again, those leaders that tend to get emotional sort of strip that from the people that they lead.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, if you don't get what you were hoping to get, and you're afraid to go in and tell your boss or whatever that and then they're going to blow up on you. So why bother?
Yeah.
Great leaders don't make assumptions.
Great leaders don't make assumptions.
Yeah, they actually take a look at what's really going on.
Okay.
All right, rather than even for anyone that they're leading, or even remember that a lot of leading sometimes is leading up,
Yes.
leading those that are leading you, right?
Yeah.
So, but you can't get a clear picture on what's going on if you start making assumptions about what's going on. That's just the story in your head, right?
Okay.
So if you need information, you ask the tough questions.
There you go.
And then you find out the information you need. Great leaders give their best.
Yeah. All the time.
In fact, you don't get a day off.
No.
I tell men all of the time, and even in my corporate trainings, men and women, that giving your best is not an option.
No, it's not.
And you don't get a day off.
Okay.
If you're a leader, you don't give yourself a day off. You give your best all the time, no matter what, even if you don't feel like it, because you're unemotional.
There you
How
go.
you feel about it is immaterial.
Right.
Giving your best is just the thing you do.
Okay.
Great leaders are good at giving instruction and directions.
Yes.
Okay, and if they don't know something, they ask for help. Right? They ask. And that was the next one on my list. Actually, is great leaders ask for help.
Ask for help.
They don't think they know everything. Nobody knows everything. If you come across someone that thinks they know everything, I would just say avoid them.
Right.
Because they're going to lead you off a cliff.
Yeah.
Because people who think they know everything are blind to all of the things that they don't know, and tend to drive over cliffs, and you don't want to go over a cliff with
So
them.
I would also add that a good leader doesn't get overwhelmed because they know when to ask for help.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's okay to not know everything.
Right.
It's not. There's no shame in not knowing everything. In
Right.
fact, one of the things that I insist on in the teams that I lead from time to time is that if you don't know anything, you just admit it.
Okay.
You say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a lot
And
better
if
than
someone
faking
asks
it.
me and I don't have the proper answer, I just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll do my best to find out the answer.
Okay.
Okay. And then
That's
again, you have to ask the hard questions and try to find someone who actually does know the answer.
Yeah. A lot of times when I'm in a conversation and someone says something and I don't know, it's a program response that I have where I say I don't have the answer to that question.
And I will tell you that saying I don't know is one of the freest things
Yeah.
in the whole world.
Yeah.
There's something about just saying I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, but I'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least I'll do my best, and I can get back to you.
Yeah.
Right?
I know where to go find the answer.
Or maybe we can go find it together.
Or who to go find the
Yeah,
answer.
we can work together and find out
Yeah.
the answer. Or we can put the team on it, or whatever the solution may be. Again, that great leaders are this is not on the list, but I just realized that it should be. They're solution oriented.
Yeah. Definitely.
Great leaders are not problem oriented; they're solution
Right.
oriented.
When a problem presents itself, you got to focus.
You're
on
looking
solutions.
for good solutions
Yes.
all the time.
Okay.
And again, it's very difficult to be solution oriented if you get emotional about stuff. When
Okay.
a problem comes up, you can't get emotional about it. You get into solution about it.
Okay.
Okay, what do we need to do to fix it? And by the way, it's a trait that they look for in pilots, test pilots, and astronauts.
Solutions.
Solution oriented and unemotional.
Okay.
Because if you let the emotions creep in, you stop looking for solutions. One of the things, I read a book some time ago about test pilots, and many of them, over the years have died in crashes. And in the process of the crash, when something had gone wrong, the pilots invariably worked the problem all the way till they hit the ground. They never stopped working the problem. They never stopped working to try to find the solution. Now when they came with ejection seats and things like that, there was some possibility of surviving, but there was a time where they didn't really have that perfected, and so these pilots would just work and work and work in contact with the ground, saying, I'm trying this, and then I'm trying this, and I'm trying this, and I'm trying this, and they just keep working the problem unemotionally until splat. So not that we want you to crash, okay? So I can just see bad pennies want us to crash and hit the ground. No, that's not happening, okay? We don't want that.
Right.
But at the same time, there is a great context in doing that.
Yeah.
Where that you don't give up, right?
Okay.
Because there's a certain quality of never giving up in that, right?
Yeah.
And we admire that. We admire when leaders are not willing to give up.
Right.
All right. They work the problem until they can't.
So let's go back to them asking for help. In this situation where we're talking about asking help and combining that with being solution oriented, you don't walk away from the problem once you've asked for help. You're still involved in the problem, trying to find the solution while you're asking for help, and then together you can all work on the solution and not just give it to somebody else.
That's true. In fact, a really great example of that just came up for me. If you haven't watched it, it's been around for a long time. Watch Apollo 13.
The Tom Hanks movie.
The Tom Hanks movie.
Haven't seen it in quite some time.
Okay,
well, I'll go back and look at it.
It's worth a watch from time to time, and if you're watching it for the second or third time, you can really listen to how they work the problem. They didn't get emotional. They didn't get excited.
Right.
They were leaking oxygen like crazy, and their time was incredibly limited if they couldn't figure out how to stop it.
Okay.
And then there was another problem, and there was another problem. There was all of these things that kept, like dominoes, which is what happens.
Okay.
And yet, instead of, they didn't know all the solutions, they asked for help. Houston didn't have the solutions. They asked for help. They brought people in. They thought outside the box, so to speak.
Okay.
But they continued to work the problem and then apply it. So everyone worked together.
Okay.
In order to find a solution to what was a myriad of cascading problems, starting with the explosion of the oxygen tank.
All right, I got to go back and watch them.
It's brilliant, and they use transcripts and all kinds of stuff to actually make that movie. So there's a lot of reality in it, unlike a lot of Hollywood movies where they take a lot of liberty with it. Yes, and dramatic license, as they call it. Yeah.
All right.
But they wanted to portray them the way that they really were, which was incredibly brilliant, in control, sober, unemotional, problem-solving test pilots. Really, they were, because you had to be that. You had to be that quality, that level, emotionally and psychologically, to become an astronaut. I mean, that's part of the psychological makeup.
I'll go back and watch Apollo 13.
That's why I get crazy, sometimes when I'm watching like these space movies, and the people that they put in space and they have these big psychological breakdowns. That's not really how it is. They don't put people in those kind of situations.
They would never pass the screening process.
Very, very highly screened and psychologically stable. So it's unlikely that they're going to have a big breakdown.
I think you just ruined sci-fi movies.
Yeah, I know, because it takes all the drama out, though, right? You got to have somebody going crazy on the ship to fight against. Accountability.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Leaders, and here's the bad news. We've said it before, and we'll say it again and again and again. The bad news of leadership is that when things go wrong, you take full responsibility as the leader.
Right.
it's your fault.
Right. And then when things go right,
And if things go right, you give away all of the praise. You
Yeah.
give away everything, and that is sort of a burden, I guess, to a degree. So, because remember that
I think it depends on the kind of leader that you are. You shouldn't really see it as a burden if you know. If you
well,
take the
it's
blame
very
for
joyous to give away the praise and the
Yeah.
accolades,
No,
right?
but even,
It's a
even
wonderful
when you
thing.
take the responsibility of whatever went wrong, that's not necessarily a burden. That's just comes with it.
Well,
Part of
yeah, you take the hit. I mean,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a hit. It really is. I mean, and especially if depending on the consequences, depending on what the cost of what went wrong actually is. Do we just lose a light?
We lost.
Okay,
the light.
what
We
we're
lost
going to
the
do
big
is we're going to pause here.
pause. I know.
Cut. We're back,
And we're
after our technical difficulty and a probably an abrupt cut. So, as one of the batteries on our studio lights just went out. So, we were talking about
Problem
accountability and problem solving.
solving. Yeah, accountability. Right. Okay.
And so it is being accountable for everything is and being responsible. Actually, that's another thing on the list, by the way, is that great leaders are responsible for everything.
Okay.
But they're also accountable to everything.
Yeah.
Right? When you're at the top, no matter what goes wrong, it's your fault.
So, give me a one sentence definition. What is accountability? What is responsibility? Because some people use those synonymously, and they're not.
They're not. They're similar, but they're different. Okay.
So accountability.
Okay. Accountability is when you are responsible for everything that happens. That's accountability. And so when things go wrong, you take the hit. You take the consequence.
Okay.
You don't make someone else pay for the problem. You take the hit for the problem. So you are accountable to it. You're open to it. You're honest about it. You're humble about it.
Yeah.
You
take ownership of it.
You take ownership of it. You don't slough it off.
Yeah.
You don't avoid it. You look. With a number of work that I've done, personal work that I've done over the years, one of the things that I've learned is the only way, to approach all of the challenges in life is to go through them.
Okay.
You can't go around them. You can't avoid them. And accountability is a way of going through stuff.
Okay.
All right.
And now let's talk about responsibility.
Okay. Responsibility means that you are at the top of the pyramid. In other words, there is no one else responsible but you. You are they used to say this is where the buck stops, right?
Yeah.
You are where the buck stops.
Okay.
And so if things go wrong, you are also responsible. Again, it's similar to accountability, but it's just take, for example, your life, your own life. How would it be if you weren't responsible for your own life?
Right. You'd be a dependent on someone, right?
Well, you'd be looking for anyone else to take responsibility but you. You'd be looking, and there are a lot of people, unfortunately, that are like this. And then they wonder why things aren't working well. Mm-hmm. But they still won't take responsibility for how things are going.
Okay.
All right. So
like for me, I'm going to use my family as an example, right? I am responsible for my children's health and upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And I take accountability for the people that they become, right? In a sense where, like, when I'm giving them Bible studies, when we're going over, these scriptures and I'm teaching them things, that's my responsibility to teach them that. Right. I don't have to rely on someone else to do the things that I'm responsible to do.
That's correct.
Now, them as adults, when they go and they're their own people going to their own Bible studies and going to church on their own now. And me as a father of these grown children now, I could say my responsibility is done in that sense, but the accountability is the fact that I can see that they are still on the path that I set for them. Right.
Well, okay. So I tell you what. Let's just take a pause again for a
Okay.
moment. I want to get actually the dictionary for men out,
Yes.
and let's take a look at the actual definition.
Let's look at the dictionary for men.
Yes.
We're talking about we actually are gonna
and
try to see if
we're
we can
going
sell
to try
to
to
you
get
guys.
this thing out to you all at some point
Yeah.
here, and we may have a couple of books out for you at some point,
Okay.
or maybe even more than that. But
Yeah.
in the time being, we're gonna go get it. So
All right.
let's cut.
Hey, we're back.
We are back yet again. Having to wait
until these are over.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about problem solving.
Yeah.
So the tablet evidently needed to go through
Update.
an update.
Yeah.
So we had to wait for the update to complete.
So the dictionary for men was written by Alan over here, and it's very practical, and you guys are going to get a good kick out of reading it.
yeah, it's got a lot of stuff in it. I don't know how much of it we're going to be able to include to publish it because I've pirated a lot of things, but we'll see. We'll publish it and then probably get sued. So, but what we wanted to talk about was, and make sure that we all stay on, one of the reasons that we have the dictionary is that we're able to be on the same plane, so to speak.
Yeah.
To understand what we're talking about. So, and this helps us a lot to be able to do that. Accountable, the definitions as an adjective is required or expected to justify actions or decisions. The second definition is responsible. And the third definition is accepting full responsibility. Now, so that's someone who is accountable accepts full responsibility.
Okay.
Okay, someone
Okay.
who's accountable accepts full responsibility. So now we'll go to responsible. Yes, in my downtime, I write dictionary stuff. It's
I saw a movie.
it's
about
probably
dictionary.
sad. Sometime, when I'm gone, they're going to say, yeah, he was a great guy, but
Yeah.
he spent all that time writing dictionary stuff.
There was a movie. I want to say Sean Penn was in it, and Hugh Jackman, and it was the story about writing a dictionary, and it was a weird thing where it's like,
Who would write a dictionary in the right mind?
no,
right?
but it was like they wanted to have this thing where everybody agreed on what the context of each word means, and I think Hugh Jackman was actually the publisher, the main editor of the dictionary, and Sean Penn was actually like a prisoner in some prison who was writing letters to him because he had read all these books and everything like that.
Wow.
And he was giving Sean was giving Hugh a lot of information. I don't know if it was a prison. No, it wasn't a prison. It was like an insane asylum or something like that.
All right. Well, I mean, we're going to get letters on that one because can you remember what the movie is?
I will find out and I will post it in the caption of this video.
All right. Well, we'll give it that for you. So
Yeah.
responsible, liable to be required to give account as of one's actions or of the discharge of a duty or trust. I'll say that again. Liable to be required to give account as of one's actions or of the discharge of a duty or trust.
Okay.
Involving, that's one. Number two, involving personal accountability or ability to act without guidance or superior authority.
So you're using accountability in the definition of responsibility, and you're using responsibility in the definition of
Yes.
accountability.
The third definition is being a source or cause, responsible for something, and all of these are true. Able to make moral or rational decisions on one's own and therefore answerable for one's behavior.
Okay.
And I think that's a big one right there.
Answerable to one's
Able
behavior.
to make moral or rational decisions on your own and able to be answerable to those decisions.
Okay. So in the definition, in the example that I gave about my kids growing up and becoming their own people, it's where do I stand as a father in them as grown children?
Well, again, you as grown children, you're no longer responsible.
I'm not responsible for their upbringing and their.
Well, you know, I have
always
this
responsible
thing.
for how I raise them.
Look. You're the only thing that parents are really responsible for is to keep them alive until they're out of the house. Yeah. Generally around 18, right? Once they're 18, you know, they legally at least you can kick them out.
Yeah.
But from again a historical and anthropological standpoint, parents are really only responsible to keep your children alive until they are adults.
And then, but they're accountable for what though?
Well, again, accountability is about your own actions, right? Your accountability is about your own actions. Being responsible is about everything. So let's finish the definitions here.
Okay.
Responsibility.
Go.
And again, we're just talking about responsible, the word responsible, being a source or cause, able to make moral or rational decisions on one's own, therefore answerable for your behavior. Okay. Then it says able to be trusted or depended upon, reliable.
Yes.
So if you show how responsible you are, then others are also able to trust you and depend on you because of your reliability.
Okay.
And that is all based in how responsible you are to your actions and to your word, right? And number 6 is based on or characterized by good judgment or sound thinking. He's responsible. So we actually think of responsible as a quality of character as well, okay? And then finally, required to render account or answerable, and that's one we use a lot. Okay, so accountability is part of being responsible. You're taking account your ability to answer and being accountable to your actions.
Okay.
All right. Now there are laws in different states that make parents of minor children accountable to the children's actions to a certain degree.
When they do a crime or something like that.
When the kid across the street when I was growing up set fire to the field a couple blocks away, the fire department had to come and they charged the landowner for putting the fire out, and the landowner in turn charged the parents of the kid who set it on fire, and they paid. They paid it up.
Okay.
And there are places where I guess you're not required. It just depends, where you are. But I think that a good parent is not only accountable to, but responsible for their children's actions, at least when they're minors.
Okay.
When they're adults, they're adults. That's it. That's when you can look at whether you did a good job then. All right. You get to look back and say, to see, and look, and this isn't the episode where we're going to really talk about parenting here.
No. I was just trying to give a practical example of what we're talking about.
But one of the things that I will say in this particular discussion is that you want to make sure that you give your children all of the tools possible so that they do well in life.
Right.
And you hope they are listening. You hope that they actually take them to heart. You can't make them. That's one thing. They are their own. As I've talked with literally thousands of parents over the years, and one of the questions I always say, so did your kids turn out exactly the way you wanted? Anybody raise their hands? And nobody raises their hands. All right, so they never turn out the way you want. They are their own person.
Yeah.
Right from the start. They have their own personalities and they have their own path to walk. And you, as a parent, can only hope that you provide them with as much good information as possible. Mm-hmm. But whether they take it or not isn't on you.
Right.
Okay. So you want to make sure they get good tools.
Okay.
And one of the ways you give them good tools is by actually having good tools that you use.
Okay.
Being an example. All right.
Gotcha.
All right. And even though that it doesn't look like they're taking them on, often someday they wake up and go, oh my God, I learned this from my parents and thank you. And they'll be very grateful for the tools that you gave them. Again, one of the most difficult things that they will face, if not the most difficult, is actually life.
Okay.
Life is a very difficult thing.
But let's get back to our list.
So responsibility. So the next word, we just did responsible. Responsibility, the state, quality, or fact of being responsible. Mm-hmm. Something for which one is responsible, such as a duty, an obligation, or a burden.
Okay.
The obligation to carry forward an assigned task to a succession or conclusion.
Right.
So, and here's the thing. It's not only a quality of a good leader, it's in many ways, it's something we all need to be for this to be a good world to live in.
Responsible.
Being responsible and taking responsibility, even for things that you don't think you're responsible for. In fact, a good leader, again, takes responsibility for all the failures of the people that he's leading, right?
Okay.
And he doesn't blame them.
Got it.
Or she.
Right.
Women are good leaders too, by the way, just so you know. In fact, women can be great leaders. So we're not, but we're talking to men right now. But just so you know, this isn't. Some of this stuff actually isn't just about men. It's about being human. It's about being part of the human race.
Okay.
So let's see. So responsibility, taking responsibility. Good leaders are responsible for their actions. They're responsible for everything that happens. They take responsibility and they are held account.
Okay.
To everything that goes on. All right. And they're willing, and it is a measure of character to the degree that you're allow yourself to be held accountable. That not only do you hold yourself accountable, but when others hold you accountable, you don't push back.
Got it. Okay.
So, and we can talk about that more and what that looks like down the road. Some of you will be going, scratching your heads. You know, the hell's he talking about? So, good leaders don't, let's see. Good leaders hold a very broad context.
Okay.
All right. They hold big contexts.
I almost want to ask for an example of what you mean by that.
Well, I'll just make it personal. All right. So the context that I hold as often as I can hold it and remind myself to hold it. When I'm not holding it, I have to remind myself to hold it. And this is how it works for everybody, by the way. You can have a great context and lose it in an instant and regain it in an instant. So that's the beauty of it, right? Okay. You at any given point, you can take on a larger context. Well, the context that I hold is that life works.
Life
works. Now, you could go into the place where a very low context, or small one, which is life doesn't work, life sucks. This is the kind of context a lot of us hold when we're in the car driving. Okay. And there's a lot of traffic, or people are driving like idiots and stuff like that.
Okay.
Right? That's even a context that people drive like idiots. Right? So, but you can raise that in so many different ways. What a wonderful day. How lucky I am to be heading to work and driving this vehicle, and that there are great roads to drive on. And it's just...
that's an outlook.
It's an outlook. It's an attitude. And it can be small. It can be large. And all of it is under your control.
And a great leader has a broad context.
Very, very broad or large context.
Okay.
The leaders hold... And they hold these really large contexts because it holds everyone in it. It's not just a context that you hold for yourself. It's a context that you literally hold for everything that's going on. So, and you can create these, and we'll actually do down the road. We'll do a podcast on this very stuff.
Okay.
But it is important to mention that the attitude that we're holding has to be. Great leaders hold really. It's like. Think about the context that Steve Jobs held, and all of the possibilities that came into being because of the context that he held.
Which was?
Well, I think it because I never met him, so I never got to ask this question, but you can often see the context based on how the results they produce, how things go around them, right?
Okay.
You can kind of get a picture about what's going on in their mind. And I think that one of his contexts was that anything's possible.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible. And
Okay.
and so when he was, at the helm of Apple, anything was possible.
Right.
He
And,
did
yeah.
things that no one thought of before. And he brought out the best in the people around him.
Yeah.
I mean, he held a very high bar.
Okay.
But this context of achieving things that were that hadn't even been thought of before,
Right.
very powerful, because it wasn't just his own personal context. I mean, it was, but it held everybody. It held everybody at his company. And in many ways, it brought the world up, too. He affected all of us, because even other companies that are in the same business raised the bar
Okay.
because of his context that anything was possible.
Okay.
We can do this. We can create iPhones, and we create Apple Macintoshes,
Right.
and we can create these incredible computers, and we can create these iPods, and
we could create a platform to run a podcast.
we could create a platform to run a podcast and do all kinds of things that no one had ever thought of before. So it's that's how powerful it is. So great leaders hold a very, very large, very broad context.
Okay.
And it affects everyone.
Yes.
It affects everyone around them in very positive ways, by the way. A great leader is always in service.
Always in service. Yeah, we talked about that before too.
We did.
Yeah.
We
great
did.
leader is always in service. Okay.
This is a service position. Leadership is being in service to others, and it is not about what you're getting personally. It's not about the more you are there to get something for yourself, the worse leader you are.
Okay.
All right. You're moving away from leadership, not toward it.
Yeah.
Leadership is the opposite. Leadership is moving into a place of service for others.
Okay.
And the more effectively you serve others, the more effectively you serve the overall picture, what it is that you're trying to do, what your purpose is there.
Yeah.
All right. As a
Okay.
leader. Great leaders are confident.
Yeah. Great leaders are confident.
They're confident.
Yeah.
And that is a result of doing a lot of the work that we've been talking about in our podcasts, and we'll continue to talk about.
Right. I think that goes along with like
Trust.
trust. Yeah, exactly. Build
Trust
when
and
you trust
confidence
yourself,
and consistency.
Yep.
Right? And you don't allow yourself or even indulge yourself to be inconsistent
Okay.
or to not be confident
Mhm.
or to not trust yourself. Those are indulgences.
Okay.
Right? And we don't want to indulge ourselves, because when we do that, we're not good leaders, and we also don't produce the results we're looking for. Right? Well, we want to get good results. Great leaders make decisions, or they're decisive.
Yes. Yes. Indecisive leaders are annoying. I've seen a few. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it doesn't produce a lot of confidence, that's for sure. All right. So you want to be able to make. Well, look, the only thing worse than a bad decision is no decision.
Okay. Fair.
Let's see. Great leaders are dedicated.
Yes. Great leaders have to be dedicated.
They are very dedicated,
Yeah.
and they don't quit.
No. You got to see it through.
They don't quit. They see it all the way through.
Yeah.
Great leaders are able to cooperate.
Cooperation. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they don't. It's not all about them, and it's all about how can we work together to achieve our goals and achieve the results that we're looking to achieve, right?
Okay.
And they make that much more important than being the one in charge, taking all the credit. Cooperation means that you have to be humble.
Yes.
You have to not know everything.
Right. You have to be a listener.
You have to be, you have to be a great listener. That's another thing, that great leaders are great listeners.
Okay. That's on your list?
It is on my list.
Great. Look at that. I predicted
It
one.
is on my list. And another one that's on the list next to it was great leaders are humble but not weak.
Great leaders are humble but not weak. Yes, there's a difference.
There is a difference.
You can't be a pushover.
You can't be a pushover, but humility is just about not taking yourself too seriously
Yeah.
and not knowing everything.
Right. And understanding that you don't know everything.
And understanding that you don't know everything,
Yeah.
and yet at the same time, that does not take away from your ability to be decisive
Right.
or to be confident. So without, because if you're not those things, then you actually are weak and appear weak. And again, there's a difference between being a strong leader and being a tyrant. And we're not talking about being a tyrant. You do what I say you're going to do, no matter what. And if you don't, I'm going to fire you, or I'm going to talk bad about you.
Right.
You're a bad person. I'm going to scream and yell at you. All of those kinds of things. Bad leadership. Bad leadership. Not effective. All right. It's certainly not the most effective.
Okay.
Like I said, tyranny has worked in the world to a degree, right? But can imagine how much more powerful it would have been if they were actually great leaders instead of tyrants.
Great. Got it.
Okay. Let's see. Great leaders go the extra mile.
Great leaders go the extra mile. Okay. Yeah.
Because if you
Doesn't
want
that go
the
along with
people
being
you're leading
dedicated?
to go the extra mile, then you have to go the extra mile.
Yeah. That goes with being dedicated, though. Seeing it through all the way. You got to
Well,
go the extra mile.
Yeah, but it's kind of an attitude too, of the willingness. It's just like the willingness to. Well, one of the things we often tell leaders when I'm working with them, like in corporate situations, is never give assignments to your people that you're not willing to do yourself.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Because if you're not willing to do it, then you're actually holding, again, when we're talking about the context thing.
Okay.
All right, that means your context is, I don't really like this and I'm not really willing to do it, so I'm going to give it away.
Okay.
All right, and it comes across. All of those thoughts, all of those ways of being actually will be reflected in the people that you lead.
Okay.
It'll come back to you. It'll come back on you. Again, some other qualities of leadership, such as being spontaneous. For some reason, being spontaneous is very desirable, because it helps keep us from getting stuck.
Okay. Gotcha.
And comfortable.
Right.
If
Keep
we're
them guessing sometimes, right?
well, and yourself too.
Okay.
And yourself. Don't get in a rut. It's easy to get in a rut with things,
Yeah.
and it also takes some of the fun out of it. And again, the I know that going to a meeting with a leader that I know is very spontaneous and creative. There's always just a little bit of I don't know whether it's fear or whatever, but there's just that anticipation.
Okay.
Like, what are they going to do?
Okay.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And you know that it's all going to be good, right?
It's almost exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, and you know that it's going to be good, but there's always that little bit of trepidation or whatever, anticipation,
Okay.
something in there that you're going like, oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they're unpredictable, and
Right.
that's another part of being spontaneous. It's just being a little bit unpredictable.
Okay.
No, it's not good to get in a rut. Great leaders. What I wrote down here was that they operate with no fear, but that's actually not totally true.
Okay.
What they do is they deal with their fear masterfully, and the way that they deal with their fear masterfully is that they go through it.
Fair.
And
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
They face it. Right?
Yeah.
Remember what I said. When you got challenges with things or problems that come up,
Yeah.
they may actually induce a certain amount of fear. All right, whether you're aware of it or not, they may induce a certain amount of fear.
Yeah.
And remember that fear is important to human beings in our fight or flight response.
Okay.
Fear has been important to keep us alive
Right.
throughout all
Yeah.
of history, and a lot of times, first place where fear really has a place is when your life is being threatened, right? When there's something happening that's dangerous, and then you have to pay attention to it and deal with it. But it also comes up in situations, like I said, with someone who's spontaneous and unpredictable, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It'll bring up, and it's not, the thing that's producing the fear is not real. It's because it's not something that's going to affect, be a danger to your life. Right. Because that's where real things, that cause fear.
Okay.
So it's kind of not real in some ways, but our bodies respond to it as if it was.
All right.
And so one of the best ways as a leader to deal with that is to face it.
Okay.
To acknowledge it and to face it and go through it. Otherwise, what ends up happening ultimately is you end up doubting yourself.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, hearing that, it makes me think that a great leader accepts the challenge
and faces it. Yeah, goes through it, accepts it, the acceptance of the challenge, and then facing it, and then having the wherewithal to push through it.
Okay.
And one of the things we used to talk about when we talked about heroes, especially like war heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you'll find that the men that live through war do not consider themselves heroes. They always say that the ones that they left on the battlefield were the real heroes.
Yeah,
right?
They gave the ultimate sacrifice.
But that being said, all right, there's another level here, and when we give like the Medal of Honor and other medals to soldiers, that they were the ones that it wasn't that they weren't afraid, they just didn't pay attention to it. They ignored their fear. Because it's kind of crazy to go into a hail of bullets. It's and that there's fear there. You can't say that they didn't have fear. The medals are for the fact that they ignored their fear and did their job anyway.
Yeah.
So and there's a takeaway. There's a really good takeaway here.
Which is?
Well, fears come up in our lives. Fears of the unknown.
Right.
Fears of taking a risk.
Right.
Fears of changing jobs, getting in a relationship, loving someone, giving your love and care to someone, right?
Yeah.
And surrendering to that. What stops us from surrendering to those things and doing them is fear.
Okay.
And so the takeaway is to face it.
Yeah.
And to go through it, acknowledge it, and accept it. And then deal with it, right? Or just go through it. Yeah, I mean, sometimes just like someone in battle, I was afraid, but I didn't have time to think about it. I just did what I had to do.
Okay.
And so you've got to figure out what it is that you've got to come to terms with within yourself to be able to do that.
Okay.
And to be able to act in spite of your fear. That's heroic, by the way. I think that living a committed life as a great leader is very heroic. Because it has all its risk, and you're risking looking bad, you're risking failure, you're risking a lot of things, and you're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So there is a heroic quality to this.
Okay.
Especially when you really commit to it and surrender to it.
Yeah.
All right. That's when you really start to act like a hero.
Got it.
But that's not the reason to do it. All right. They'll make a statue to you later. Again, great leaders lead themselves first, but also great leaders are able to follow.
Yeah. You
Right?
have to know how to.
You have
follow.
to know how to be a good follower in order to be a great leader.
Yes.
And there are times where it's appropriate, even when you're a leader, because there's always someone above us.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so you're actually following someone else. I mean, there's always somebody up. up there on the chain of command. And then there's the part about I don't know what. All right, that's a can of worms. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Great leaders honor the truth.
Great leaders honor the truth. Okay.
Doesn't mean that they always tell the truth, but they honor it. They're aware of what the truth is.
Yeah.
And it's not about manipulating the truth either. There's times to tell the truth, and there's times where you just don't say anything.
Right.
And the reason and the context around that is the thing that we're going to just spend another minute on, because we ended another podcast on this, and we're probably going to end this one. I don't know how we're doing time-wise.
We're about there.
We're about there, right? So this is a great place to end the podcast, which is about great leaders care. I don't need this anymore. Great leaders, in order to be a great leader, they have found the place inside them that cares about others. Because you can't be in service to people unless you care.
Okay.
It's impossible. Because if you don't care, then the only person you're going to be in service to is this one.
Right.
All right. And you'll see it. There are many, many, many people out there who are in service only to this and will tell you that they care about you, but they don't. They don't. And their actions show that they don't.
Right.
Really, all they're in service to is this.
Okay.
So this work shifts in a massive way when you find the place inside you that cares about others. And remember that a lot of medals of honor were given, or most medals of honor have been given posthumously.
Okay.
Right?
Posthumously.
Posthumously. Yeah. What he said. Are we gonna get a lot of feedback on this too? Can't even talk, right? So for a wordsmith, it's like, how could you mispronounce that? So, but it's the ultimate sacrifice of care to take the hit for someone else, to take a bullet for someone else, to push someone out of the way of a car and get hit.
Yeah.
I saw my dad risk his life a couple of times for others as I was a kid growing up.
Yeah.
I saw him jump out of a car and save a baby, scoop a baby off the street, and then jump into the rolling car that the baby fell out of because the mother jumped out of the car and didn't put it into park. And the car's rolling down the street with her other couple of kids in the car.
Wow.
Going into a ditch. And my father, holding the baby, ran after the car, jumped into it, got it stopped before it went off into the ditch.
Wow. Captain America.
And with traffic. And it was just, and I'm sitting in the car just going like, my dad is amazing.
Was your car in park?
Our car was parked. My dad put our car in park. We were safe.
Yeah.
We were safe. And we were stopped at the light. The light was in another direction. But, the thing is that I saw him do that multiple times growing up.
Okay.
That being selfless.
Yeah.
And stepping into leadership, you must have a quality of selflessness.
Okay.
All right. Being selfless is a quality of caring for others. To be responsible for everything is a quality of being selfless. Giving it all, giving the accolades all the way.
Right.
That means that you're not needing to be acknowledged. Great leaders don't need to be acknowledged. The only one that needs to acknowledge you is you.
Okay.
You know the good work you do. And do that. It's okay to acknowledge yourself because you're the only one that really cares. Most other people don't care, right? And so this quality of being selfless is a great and noble quality, and we give medals for it. We do. We give medals for the men and women that put themselves in harm's way in order to protect others, whether it's in battle or whether it's in society, our communities, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And it's more than just a noble quality. It's required. It's a requirement to be a great leader, because you can't be of service without it. So, again, with your journaling, we've been talking about, with the introspection and just taking stock of yourself, start to take a look at how much do you really care about others. And I'll bet most of you will find that you do, and some of you may already be there, even at higher levels than we are. I don't know, but it's always work, because I know personally as a man, and being a relatively selfish, self-centered, man, that it actually requires something of myself to not give in to being that all the time, to actually rise above it and to be better than that.
Yeah,
it's easy to be that. It's very easy. I don't have to engage in anything. I don't have to take any effort to be that. It's just sort of there. It's always there, and I think it's there for all men.
Okay.
All right. Being better than that actually is what requires engagement and effort and larger context, holding it. So take a look for yourself.
Yeah. So we ran through Alan's list of leadership qualities. And I hope you guys enjoyed that.
I hope you found a lot of them to be you.
Yeah,
actually, and also for the ones that you realize that aren't you, maybe it's that now you got something to work on, something to challenge you.
Yeah.
And to rise up to.
Right. I think it was a great list.
Oh, thank you. I thought it was a pretty good one too.
Yeah,
actually.
I like it. It was good.
Yeah, and I hope
mine was a lot shorter than that. I think I had like 6 things on my list.
Oh yeah, well, if there's only 6, I'll write 20. So
wow, there you go. All right, thanks everybody. Bad Pennies will be right back.
We'll see you. Cut.
Good job, man.
Yeah, that was great.
All right.
Woohoo! That was 6, wasn't it?
That's number 6. Yeah.
Oh man.